someone who has been married for, I have to count, three years, and recently had a baby, it's kind of surprising how invested I've been in this aftermath of the viral Vogue article. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing now, by Shantae Joseph. And I think that's saying something to how good this article really was. But my question for you is, have you read it, and have you seen that discourse and all the conversation it sparked on your FYP or group chats?
Yes, and yes. So I have read the article multiple times, enjoyed reading the article, and then I think my algorithm on TikTok for like a good 2, 3 days after it kind of initially came out was both the Shantae Joseph, the creator herself, because like she's also active there, like discussing the article, but also different takes from creators as well. And so because you've seen kind of like, and especially if you're like on a certain corner of the internet, like the the Giggly Squad corner where we
Mm-hmm.
are decentering men, and like Hannah Berner's whole shtick is that like she's married, but nobody knows she's married, right? And she like
Yeah.
also forgets all the time that she has a husband. Like that, it's kind of an ongoing joke. But I definitely see this almost like a division between, you have your like Nara Smiths and all of the Utah moms and the mom talk creators who are very much about like, they're doing coordinated dances with their husbands. And then there's the other side of TikTok where you might see like one finger of a man on the corner of an aesthetic
Yeah.
caviar plate, and that is it.
That was
Yes.
a huge convo last year. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a whole of October, November, my For You page was just full of that. And what also stood out to me, that was a lot of people didn't actually read the article. They just read the headline and kind
Yeah.
of went with it. So
Classic
there were
internet.
a lot of interpretation of it. A lot of people were like making like memes about it. A lot of people were feeling very empowered, like, okay, it's official, having a boyfriend is embarrassing, I'm in on my single era forever. Uh or then people were just thinking that having a boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
altogether is cringe, and we're kind of canceling out of love, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't think is the case, but I think we can get deeper into it.
Yeah, obviously on House of Content today, we're not just discussing this article, but it's a jumping off point to this bigger topic and understanding how the internet discourse on relationships specifically has sort of evolved. And also, I think from a personal point of view, too, why having the right partner is a really big decision that can either basically make or break you. So I want to actually start there potentially, and kind of understand what you think about this, and why would having a boyfriend actually be embarrassing. And I think when we say boyfriend, we can talk about partner, because yeah, it gets interesting when you start to broaden that up. But why would that be embarrassing for somebody, or in general, or according to the internet?
I think there's this whole again, and maybe in like, okay, maybe I'm gonna be polarizing, but maybe in like some ways the patriarchy deserves to be humbled a little bit. And I think this came like before boyfriends being embarrassing, it was actually just like more of a discourse of like women collectively rolling their eyes at men overall. Like there's been a lot of content around that, right? Like, ugh, like men are the worst. Like, why would I listen to a man? Why would I believe a man? Like, if there's like jokes and then also more serious layers to it. And again, like I already said, like the whole like squad
Yeah.
type of conversation. So I think it's been already there like for a for a while, and then it's, in my opinion, also kind of a little bit of a counter reaction to all of this push into like traditional gender norms and push to like marriage, and like you want to be like a soft
Mm-hmm.
wife and you should be like uh, upholding all these feminine ideals and like playing the heteronormative marriage. And so I think that's almost like a counteract to that is like almost like this, like if you're a cool girl or a baddie, it's harm to your personal brand that you somehow are maybe catering to a man.
You're talking about this like post girl boss moment that we're
Yes.
in, where it's almost cringe to
Mm.
have a boyfriend, because to your point, it can read as like domestic and compromising and even off brand. You mentioned Hannah, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's part of it, that someone can actually be married or have a boyfriend, but if they were showing it online in
Mm-hmm.
a certain way, it would start to
Mm-hmm.
feel off brand, because being single has started to feel empowering and aspirational even
Mm.
online, which is interesting.
And also, like, when you're single, like, that kind of gives you the freedom to create content about whatever you want in a way. Like, you're fully in charge of what you're like sharing of your life, like of your home, whatever. You don't have to take anyone else into consideration. So I think that also like gives that kind of ultimate freedom to do whatever you want. And then when you add another person to it, it's just like, you know, even if it's the best relationship ever, of course you have another person take into consideration, so that changes the narrative, that changes like what you can share. So even if it is like the best decision of your life, like it is yeah, it's gonna change your like image in many ways. And I think a lot of like, I don't think having a boyfriend per se is embarrassing. I think like making a relation your relationship your whole entire
Identity.
Yeah,
identity
your
is what people are
identity.
reacting to.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've seen it, and I've done it as well in the past, like
Mm-hmm.
years ago, where like, you know, when I'm in a new relationship, you're excited and you want to post about it, and
Mm-hmm.
like, and I've seen my friends do that as well, where it kind of like their feed just becomes their relationship. And I think we're moving away from that, like where partners should be part of your life, but they should never be like the headline of it,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that you have to be like proud of, or like that you made it like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of something that we left in like their, like, I don't know, 2015, 2000, like
Yeah, it's
20.
interesting because I did a deep dive of sort of looking into how the internet took it and ran with
Mm-hmm.
it. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, the internet does what the internet does and simplifies and cuts corners.
Mm.
So it basically just became a meme, that single is equaling to you're evolved and boyfriend is cringe. And some examples were videos like, POV, you don't post your man because your piece is priceless, or when your brand is hot girl but you have a boyfriend, what do you do? And obviously there's been also conversation around privacy but not secret, and that's when we're talking about those like man's hand on a steering wheel, like, man's reflection in a mirror. And also, I even have friends that have said to me that they don't want to introduce their new partner to me before they have gotten engaged. And that was a moment where went,
Wow.
Wow.
now this is getting out of hands. I
That is
understand the online part of it, where it's like, I don't want to share before I'm,
Sure.
further along in our relationship. Maybe engagement as the first moment feels a little extreme, at least to me, but each of their own. But taking it to the real world, I was like, let's just pause there for a second and
Mm.
think about what that really means. Like, you're saying you're not going to introduce your boyfriend to your friends before getting engaged.
that's a red flag.
That's a red
Major.
flag.
No, and it's like,
Um,
are you gonna spend 2 years just like holed up with the man? Like, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, you cannot marry a person that at least one of your close friends hasn't like vetted. You know,
exactly.
like we need
At
we need.
least one, I would say, like all of them.
No, you need a
Yeah.
performance review.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but I thought that that was interesting because I think people are living in this online world where, a certain group of women is sharing this content that is also very empowering. It's like, hey, don't give so much before they give something back. And I think there's good to that. And I actually have pivoted my own approach in terms of online sharing, where I share less of my relationship if I compare the years when I met my now husband to now, or even my ex. But I think that's interesting how extreme and how it's like spilling over to real life.
I think if you think about the creator angle here, is that a lot of lifestyle creators built a big part of why they blew up is because there is that relationship voyeurism element where they're like showing everything. When we were at Creator IQ at the event and we went to see, the name escapes me now, but she's a big YouTube creator from
Brute
Utah.
Monk.
Yes, Brooke Monk, like her brand is very much about the boyfriend being in the, or now fiance, I guess, being in the videos, like doing challenges together. They're sharing a lot. And then as the cycle goes on, because not everybody stays together forever, what happens then is that now you're actually all of a sudden accountable for the demise of your relationship on social. And it's gonna, if your strategy is that your lifestyle is, and part of it is your relationship, when that element goes away, you're left in a spot where you have to be maybe more vulnerable than what you would want to be. I saw just this one creator whose um videos have been showing up on my TikTok, where she was like doing these like POV, like when you know your husband is your biggest fan and biggest support and they still cheated on you. So now this whole cheating scandal is out there. So I think part of it is also like part image, but also part mitigation, because that's a really hairy situation to be in as a creator.
Yeah, I agree. It's so interesting how it feels like there's this pipeline of relationship accounts to soft launching to hard launching to then never showing your boyfriend before Ring exists. And I think all of those feel extreme now in a way where I'm kind of like we need to find some kind of middle ground there. um but yeah, there was a lot of creators that had accounts together, or to your point, the content that
Mm,
was maybe performing the best
mm-hmm,
was actually them together.
mm,
um and that can be hard because
mm-hmm,
things happen, and then you
mm,
have to air out the whole relationship. Then
mm,
you feel like you owe something
mm,
to your audience. Let's say you break up or
mm,
someone cheats, you have to update
mm,
the community.
mm-hmm,
And maybe that's not what you want to do, or
mm,
maybe you lose your account in a way
mm-hmm,
because you've created the what you're known for around the relationship.
Yeah, which actually reminds me of the content that I or some of my most viral content is this couple comedy content
mm, true.
that I started doing like almost 5 years ago with my now fiance, and we had a lot of fun making the videos. They would be very spontaneous, like like it was a lot of fun for us, and they just like happened to go viral. We got millions of views like on almost all of them because they were just something that people could really relate to, and we were having fun with it until I kind of had this feeling where I was like, wait, like do I actually want to create all this content with my then boyfriend, and like and just like have that kind of like in a way stress and exposure like on our like relationship that wouldn't exist without it, like do I really want my account to become this couple's account? Like I did see a lot of great opportunities in that, but also a lot of risks that I didn't necessarily want to have. So I kind of like slowly like started kind of removing him from my content. It was like a kind of like a semi-conscious decision where I'm like, maybe I don't want my account to be all about it, and maybe like even though we're having fun with it, like it is risky, and I want to kind of like protect our relationship and like do my own thing instead. And and yeah, it's kind of like, and I can see a lot of people who have built these couples accounts, like they're in a pickle once things go south. And also like some of the biggest creators out there, I don't know if you remember the it was this prank couple on YouTube. Like there was like it was like a whole thing like 10 years ago when they broke up. That was like one of the internet's biggest breakups.
Mm-hmm.
And because
Mm-hmm,
the whole world was following them, and I'm like, I would not want that to happen
mm,
to myself. Like, and they specifically said they broke up because they were getting so much
mm,
stress on their relationship from people online that like
mm.
their relationship just couldn't handle it.
Mm. When as I was prepping for today's recording, I was actually looking for couple content on TikTok, and I saw two pieces of content that kind of made me think two very different things. So one of them is this girl, Brigitte or Brie, and she's Brazilian but born in the U.S. and now she moved to Brazil to become a full-time couple content creator with her boyfriend that who's also Brazilian. They met here, and so I follow her content because I'm practicing my Portuguese. But they're like content now, and it's her account, but it's very much all revolving around couple content and like cultural differences. It's really good content. But I thought to myself, you've moved to another country, you're making money, like this is your livelihood now. And like how much, again, like how much stress and how much is like riding on this like family business almost. And so that was the one thing. But the other piece of content that I saw was from this he's a makeup and beauty content creator called Adisha Mariraju. I don't know if you know him, Adi. He is this like Indian guy who's married to a man. They have a beautiful daughter. I've met him in person. I've collaborated with him before through my agency work. And his husband is often in the videos, and like they did one video where the husband is narrating his like get ready with me like while on screen, like he's there like commenting in real time. It's really funny. It's a great piece of content. And then I thought, like, actually, like, if you're in a same sex relationship, like, let's think of like lesbian couples, like the Streckers, like Taylor Strecker, Taylor Donahue, both creators, and then Adi and his husband. It's okay. Like, it's not cringe to show same sex partners, but I think it's more of the heteronormative part where the discourse begins.
Yeah, that's definitely the content that I saw the most, that was discussing the article as
Mm-hmm.
well. And I do think that you're correct that there's sort of a patriarchy response there.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I think about it, some of the videos that I've posted of my husband's are kind of counter that and actually show the side of my relationship where he's taking on roles and doing things that enable me to do something, which I think is the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of embarrassing if you went with sort of the internet discourse.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I remember being freshly postpartum
Mm-hmm.
and going to a workout, and I posted a video of me at the workout, and he's literally at the rooftop of the workout place with the baby and just like rocking the baby to sleep. And I think I posted it because that's sometimes the part that you don't see. And I do think that what's being nice about living in LA is that I feel much more surrounded by different kinds of relationships. We've talked about this in the past, how we're all from Finland, and they're still very much just like, this is what a relationship and family looks like. And I think that it's a welcomed change to open your eyes and people's eyes to how relationships can look like. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe the positive side of this kind of
Mm-hmm.
conversation, that maybe you don't need to be in a relationship unless certain things are met or true. And some
Mm-hmm.
people want traditional relationships where
Mm-hmm.
the division of labor or the energy or the vibe is very much heteronormative,
Mm-hmm.
and traditional. And that's why we have this weird contradiction now,
Mm-hmm.
that on one side, you said this earlier, we're seeing the soft life, the adjacent aesthetics that are trending, and then public romantic attachment is still treated with suspicion. So that's like an interesting tension on the internet, that internet wants intimacy aesthetically, not specifically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so this like vague lover is very chic and can be aspirational, but if you've got like a named, tagged male boyfriend, it's not that cool.
And I also think there is a flattening of the conversation where we're talking about partnerships and boyfriends and husbands merely as a personal branding issue. But I think we're then missing out on the conversation that you alluded to in the beginning, like who your partner is and what their values are and how they support you and how you like work together. There are a lot of positive sides there that can like completely like change your life. I have an example of that, like this, like now, like this especially like past 6 months. I've started to, I feel like I've started to get a lot more opportunities as a creator, getting invited to things, going to events, partnerships, press, things like that. And one of the best moments that I had was like my husband completely unprompted said to me, like, I am sort of like so happy to be in the shadows of like your limelight. Like, this is your time. And I'm going to be here, like, in the back, I'm going to be cheering you on, but this is like your moment. And I'm very comfortable being here. And it's quite opposite also to like a lot, because a lot of times there's a lot of that discourse of like men can't handle successful women. And and certainly that, like, if you haven't done the work, like that can still be true. So I think like there needs to be more conversation around like, okay, you actually made that good choice. And Yanni, like even your content, I'm obsessed whenever you like share the stories of like all of the things that Travis does for both of your lives to function better.
Yeah, and I think that is the content that I'm comfortable with because I
Mm,
almost feel like I want to see more of that. And he doesn't mind me sharing it, which is the biggest
hmm.
green flag as well,
It
even
is.
though, from a guy perspective, somebody could feel like it puts them, in a light that they don't want to be seen at, or that's not cool, or that's embarrassing. And so, yeah, I think that's a huge, huge green flag. But I think it's also me thinking about the relationship content in a new light, where it's less about flexing a relationship in the sense that we're just sharing like selfies and like romantic photos. Actually, we're kind of cringe in posy photos anyway, so I hate sharing those kinds of photos. I love having like family photos now with photographers and stuff like that, but in terms of the relationship content that gives a bit more of an into our lives, I'm noticing now that I'm looking back at what I've shared that there is this like theme of broadening and showing how we kind of take different roles than maybe what's traditional, which is interesting.
And I think that's the kind of content that the audience is there for. Like I'm here for it. Like I've been getting like parent content about raising kids already for years, and I have this folder that I'm like saving for whenever that happens in the future. And I think it's absolutely amazing how there are so many men these days and couples sharing that perspective on parenthood and giving these tips that you wouldn't necessarily get from your close circle or your parents, because a lot of people nowadays, they want to raise their children a bit differently than they were raised back in the day. So I do think that like social media and creators are a great resource, of course thinking critically what you're getting. But I think that's the kind of couple content that is a bit more like inspiring, educational, showing like a new way of parenthood, a way, like new wave of fatherhood that we're kind of seeing, like that's very inspiring. And I think there's a lot of need for that for both women and men to see, like
Hmm.
Yeah,
what
I
can
was
actually be out
gonna
there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you both if you think that there's a bigger theme that's driving some of this conversation. But I think what we're getting into is maybe the positives of
Mm,
opening this up. I think the TikToks are pretty one
hmm.
sided, and they kind of, you know, cut corners, like I said earlier. But
Mm,
even this parenthood and dad content you're referring to, actually there's a lot of stats coming out that our generation of dads, they're spending so much more time with their kids
hmm.
than their parents. And so I do think that it's interesting to think about how this pretty provocative
Hmm.
article and provocative content is
Mm.
still sort of connecting to a bigger shift. What do you think?
That's so true. But I also think that for us to not want to identify through a man, or I think there's the lighter side of it where I think can be really funny, like for example my wedding highlights on my private Instagram, like the name of the highlight is decentering men, and that is literally me getting married to my husband. I think it's hilarious. So I think there so I do think there's a lighter side of it, and like also like kind of like laughing a little bit to like the at these traditional um gender norms. But I do think it's also the brandification of you as a person. And
Mm-hmm.
then like instead of like this being a person that you share your life with. Now this is just like an attribute that, like, especially if you're a creator, it might be even like listed in, like, when like agencies are shortlisting creators for their brands, they're like, a little segment about like the husband or the boyfriend. So you really need to almost like be strategic about it. And it relates also back to the fact of how social is becoming so performance optimized, and so much about like how can you have the right hook, how can you have the right angle, the right aesthetic, the right cuts, the right view throughs. So it like relates almost back to this push towards like having your content perform as well as possible. And so then now how does this man fit into like this mix? Like, does it drive your views up or does it drive it down? Like the article mentioned that, hey, I'm not following my friends if they're like posting about their husbands or
Yeah,
boyfriends.
that's extreme, but there's a very concrete thing that I've noticed, and I think I fall in this category too. But I'm also noticing that a lot of people are keeping their social handles as they have always been after getting married, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that like identity and
Mm.
building your presence
Mm.
around who you are versus
Mm.
you as
Yeah.
married is also a bigger thing, because I think we can all remember, it being more common when influencers would get married and there would be like a whole rebranding just around the
Yeah.
relationship, but then around the marriage. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But I
No.
think that we're seeing more of the women, especially,
Mm.
keeping, in the real world, keeping their names, but
Mm.
also keeping their presence. And a lot of people are doing what I'm doing, where I'm going to keep my online presence as me, but then on the background, you can figure out how you
Yeah.
want the legal things to be and things like
Yeah.
that. So, kind of pivoting a little bit to bring this back to brands. I know that this is a pretty spicy discussion. So, what do you think that this means for brands, and how should they show relationships in this modern world?
Well, I would say brands should kind of show love as part of life, but not the point of it. Like, not like the main thing. I
Mm.
think brands sometimes kind of overthink romance online. It's not like people are anti-relationship. They just don't
Mm.
want relationship to necessarily like explain or define who you are. So when brands are showing love in a very like obvious little way, it can kind of feel like a lot, or it can
Mm.
feel very fake, or kind of like the brands are explaining you how to feel. But I think that something that feels a lot more modern is just being a lot more subtle about it, like some maybe just kind of leaning into the mood of love or those moments and
Mm-hmm.
the feeling, and like let people kind of recognize
Mm.
themselves in that instead of spelling everything out. So I
Mm.
think like leaving room for interpretations, like
Mm-hmm.
whether there are like two women or two men or whatever, like it, like you don't necessarily have to like
Mm.
define what that is, but like leave it up to the audience
Mm.
to kind of decide and like recognize
Mm.
themselves in the content. So that's just something that I've been thinking of.
I think I have two takes on this. One is because the idea of marriage, nuclear family is, for better or worse, it's very polarized, especially in the US right now. And so I think brands need to be very careful that even if you don't intend it to have undertones that might sound like you're promoting like certain ideals, you have to look at it from that lens. I think that's exactly what happened with the American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney last
Mm.
year, and I'm still like of like two minds with it. I went to see the CMO speak at Brand Week, and he gave a really like he obviously he's doubling down on like there's no like hidden message. Like obviously people see what they see in things, but again, like even if they did not intend that to happen, this topic you just have to look at it from that lens. So I think that's
Mm.
one thing. And I think the second thing is like if you have the right type of brand, like you're very like social native, like let's say the Foster sisters favorite daughter, like a brand like that, or someone who has the authority, like you can also play with it. Like I would love to see some campaigns around like playfully decentering men. Like it could be almost like a parody or a skit where you only see like the hand or the sock, or like or the like the male watch on the table, but you're never showing the man. Like you could like there's a lot of humor that you can extract out of that, so I would
True, and
lean
I
into
do
that.
think that David Barr kind of was playing with it
Mm,
with Julia Fox with the
yeah.
ad that said, what was it? Men disappoint, David doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I do
Yeah,
think
that's
that
funny.
that's the most recent
Mm.
example, and I think that through the partnership that also came from Julia, not just the brand.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting way to get into that conversation and also land the benefit of the product in a way.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that there's a lot more there, and I do think that we've been so, from an advertising point of view, hyper fixated on just, who are we showing, like what kind of pairs in terms of their gender, and making sure there's the right mix, and we're making sure that everyone's can see themselves. But I think that in doing that, we've also kind of also created more stereotypes in a
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see more hyper specificity. Like that's
Mm.
what, that's what I think is cool about the content, is that you're seeing these scenarios that are not used anywhere but are part of real life. Like this example I gave of my husband at the workout studio. Like I haven't seen an ad that gets
Mm.
that specific, right? And it's
That would
not
be
about,
genius.
right, and it's not about like everyone doing that thing, but I think the specificity can be relatable, not to say that this is exactly the thing that you are doing. But I think sometimes brands get too scared to be specific because they think that something is niche,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't resonate. But sometimes going very specific doesn't mean that everyone has to see themselves to find it
Mm.
interesting or relevant. So that's my little spiel. But as we were looking into brand examples too, like there are big brands that are showing relationships, like Skims often features couples, but the focus is still on the woman and the confidence and not on the relationship. It's interesting that Glossier has always leaned in sort of the self love aspect, maybe the
Mm-hmm.
self intimacy, versus sort of coupledom. We are seeing this in luxury fashion where, there's more shift to sort of the lone female leads
Mm.
versus always that like dependence. We can all remember reading like paper magazines where it would always be this couple in the perfume ad, and I think that we're looking at new, especially perfume brands, and
Mm.
that's not the vibe at all. So I think that's interesting to start like comparing.
Mm-hmm.
um but either way, this overly earnest like boyfriend content that is starting to feel like a Facebook official type of post of today, um that's definitely like internet has decided that's no
It's over.
longer. It's over, it's done. And usually we end our episodes with sort of our pitch on the house, but I want to introduce a new segment, House Rules. So if you were to kind of summarize how we would end this, what is the take of the episode, but also our take on the topic? What would you say?
Your relationship cannot be an identity, it can be an add on to your life and maybe a specific angle of how you're showcasing your life. But I think there needs to be, and that's maybe from a creator's perspective, and for brands there needs to be this lens of looking at things from like showing truth in relationship but not necessarily showing stereotype.
I love that. I would say that it's not that having a boyfriend or a partner is embarrassing, and I can co-sign that on a personal level, but what is to me is needing one to create an identity around or to create a social presence
Or an
around.
aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I mean, I can only add to that that like to just summarize the conversation, that the embarrassment isn't about love, it's about dependence.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to encourage everyone to move into their main character era, and
Mm-hmm.
we still very much love,
Mm-hmm.
but love towards yourself
Mm-hmm.
comes first.
And I'm very
Yeah,
curious to see, Melissa, now in your journey, like being engaged, like what type of content you will and will not show on social in the next
I
next
think
year or
that's a
so.
good cliffhanger to end on. You were
For
listening to
sure.
House of Content. This was our episode about love, I guess. But leave us a review. Stay tuned and go check Mel's content. See the big announcement and how she's gonna navigate the love content. Until next time.